3 to 6 months of expenses. That is the number almost everyone repeats, and for a very large number of people, it is wrong in both directions at the same time. For some of you, 3 months is dangerous. For others, 6 months is 2 years of your life spent building something you did not need. The advice survives because it is easy to say, not because it is right. And nobody ever gives you the second part, which is where to actually keep it, or the third part, which is the only one that matters, which is how to still have it in 4 years. Because here is what happens to most emergency funds. They get built slowly and with real discipline over 11 or 12 months, and then they get spent, not on an emergency, on a kitchen, a car that was fine, a holiday that had been earned. The money leaves in an afternoon, and the person who spent it could give you a completely reasonable account of why. So, this video is 3 questions in order: how much, where, and how not to touch it. The third one is where nearly everybody fails, and it is the only one that is not really about money. Quick orientation, if you have not seen the first video in this series. There are 5 levels of wealth, and they are measured in time rather than money. How long you could keep your life running if the income stopped tomorrow. Level 1 is dependence. You survive on the next payment. Level 2 is appearance. You now earn enough to look like you left level 1, and you have spent almost exactly that much doing it. Most people are on level 2 and stay there for decades. Level 3 is a buffer. It is the first level where money does something for you rather than something about you. And the single most useful fact on the whole ladder is this one. Getting from level 1 to level 2 requires more income. Getting from level 2 to level 3 does not require a single extra dollar. It requires you to stop converting income into obligations. That is all. Which is why this is the most achievable jump on the ladder, and the one people are least likely to make. Let us properly kill the 3 to 6 month rule, because understanding why it is wrong tells you what the right number is. That rule treats every person as the same person. It assumes your income is equally likely to stop, equally quick to replace, and equally shared with other people. None of those things are true across 2 different lives, and the gap between them is enormous. There are only 3 variables that matter, and you can answer all 3 in about a minute. A permanent salaried employee in a stable organization is in a different position from a contractor on rolling 3-month agreements, who is in a different position again from someone self-employed whose income arrives in unpredictable lumps. This is not about how good you are at your job. It is about the structure of the arrangement. Excellent people are made redundant constantly, and the notice they get is contractual, not moral. Not how long you think. How long it took the last 3 people you know who lost a role like yours. This is where people are most badly calibrated, and the direction of the error is always the same. Everyone believes they would find something in 6 weeks. The more specialized your role, the more senior you are, and the smaller the number of employers who need what you do, the longer it takes, and seniority makes it worse, not better. There are simply fewer chairs at the top of the room. If you are the only income in a household with children, a mortgage, and a car that someone needs in order to get to school, your buffer is not really your buffer. It is the continuity of a household, and it should be sized like one. If you are one of two earners and you could survive on either salary alone for a while, you are in a completely different position and you are allowed to hold less. Salaried, in a role with plenty of employers, no dependents, low fixed costs, 3 months is genuinely enough. Hold more than that, and you are converting years of your life into insurance you will not use. Salaried, specialized role, dependents, a mortgage, 6 to 9 months. This is where most people watching this sit. Contract, commission-heavy, or self-employed with lumpy income, 9 to 12 months, and it is not a luxury. Your income has a rhythm that does not match your outgoings, and the buffer is what absorbs the mismatch. Sole earner, dependents, a specialized role, high fixed costs, 12 months. If that number frightens you, that fear is information. It is telling you how exposed the arrangement is, and the answer is either to build the buffer or to reduce the exposure. It is not to look away. Now, the error that quietly ruins the whole calculation. People size the buffer against their income. It should be sized against their costs. If you earn $6,000 a month and your life costs $4,000, then 6 months of buffer is $24,000, not $36,000. Sizing against income means building 50% more than you need, which takes an extra year, and during that year you are more exposed rather than less, because the target keeps receding. And there is a second error inside the first one. When people work out what their life costs, they use a normal month. There is no such thing as a normal month. Every month has something unusual in it, and the unusual thing is different each time, which is precisely what makes it usual. So take 12 months of actual spending, add it up, and divide by 12. That number will be somewhere between 10 and 25% higher than the figure you had in your head, and it is the only one worth using. Every budget that fails here. Let me put real figures on it, because the abstraction hides how ordinary the sums are. Take someone earning $54,000 a year. Take home is roughly $3,400 a month. They are salaried, they have a mortgage and 1 child, and their role is reasonably specialized. That puts them in the 6 to 9 month band. Now, the part that matters. Their life does not cost $3,400 a month. That is what arrives. What leaves is $2,600, and they know this because they added up 12 months of actual statements rather than estimating. So, the target is not 6 times 3,400, which would be 20,400. It is 6 times 2,600, 15,600. That difference, just under $5,000, is roughly 6 extra months of building for protection they do not need against a scenario that does not exist. Because if they lose the income, they are not spending $3,400 a month. They are spending $2,600, and probably rather less, because the first thing anyone does when income stops is stop spending. Sizing against income is the most common error in this entire subject, and it costs people half a year every time, which raises the question everyone wants answered and almost no one asks out loud. How long am I going to be doing this for? Same person, 3,400 in, 2,600 out. That is 800 a month of surplus, and if they direct all of it, they reach 15,600 in about 20 months. 20 months is a long time, and I am not going to pretend otherwise. But notice two things about that number. The first is that they were already producing $800 a month in surplus before they started. It existed. It was simply arriving in the account and leaving again in ways nobody could later reconstruct. They are not earning more. They are noticing. The second is that the protection is not binary. You are not unprotected for 20 months and then safe. At month 3, you have a month of runway and a car repair stops being a crisis. At month 8, you have 3 months and a bad quarter at work stops being frightening. Every deposit buys a specific quantity of calm immediately, and you feel it long before the target arrives. That matters because the reason most people abandon this in month 5 is that they think nothing has happened yet. Something has. They just have not looked at it the right way. Before anything in this section, I am not a financial advisor, and none of this is advice about products. It is about structure, where a thing sits, and why the position matters more than the return. What you buy is your decision and worth taking properly regulated advice on. With that said, a buffer has 3 requirements, and they are in strict priority order. It must be available within days. It must be worth the same tomorrow as it is today, and it must be somewhere you do not look. Notice what is not on that list. The return is not on that list. This is the part people cannot accept, and it is the reason most buffers are in the wrong place. The most common place people keep an emergency fund is the account they spend from, with the reasoning that it is available and they will simply be disciplined about it. They will not, and this is not an insult, it is arithmetic. Money that is visible in the account you spend from will be spent because every purchasing decision you make is measured against the balance you can see. If the balance says $11,000, a $900 decision feels small. If the balance says $2,000, the same decision feels enormous. You have not changed. The context has. People at level 2 do not have a discipline problem. They have a plumbing problem, and they keep trying to fix it with discipline, which is why they keep failing. Move the pipe and the behavior changes on its own. The second most common mistake is more sophisticated and more expensive. It is putting the emergency fund into the market because leaving $18,000 earning almost nothing feels irrational when it could be growing. Here is the problem with that, and it is not the one people expect. The day you need your emergency fund is disproportionately likely to be a day the market is down. Recessions do not cause redundancies, and market falls separately. They cause both at once for the same reason. So, the moment you most need to sell is the moment selling costs you the most, and you would be crystallizing a loss to pay a bill, which is the single most expensive way to move money that exists. An emergency fund is not an investment that happens to be safe. It is not an investment at all. It is a structural component, and you would not judge a foundation by how much it appreciated. 4 things, and they are all about friction rather than yield. A separate account at a different institution from your everyday bank. Different institution matters more than different account because it means a different app, a different login, and a genuine pause before anything moves. No card attached to it. None. If you can tap it, it is not a buffer. It is a slower current account. Notice it is not on your main banking dashboard. You should have to go and look for it deliberately. Out of sight is doing real work here, and split it in two. Keep roughly 1 month instantly accessible for the genuinely urgent, and hold the rest somewhere that takes a day or two to release. That delay is not an inconvenience, it is the entire mechanism. Almost nothing that feels like an emergency at 9 in the evening still feels like 1:48 hours later. Interest is a genuine consideration, and you should not ignore it entirely. Over a year, on a real buffer, the difference between a poor rate and a reasonable one is nothing. But it is the fourth priority, and if chasing it costs you access or adds volatility, you have optimized the wrong variable, and you will find out on the worst possible day. So, you have the number and you have the place. Now, the part where almost everybody loses it. Most people who build an emergency fund will spend it within 4 years on something that was not an emergency. And they will not do it recklessly. They will do it after careful thought, with a justification they believe, and they will be genuinely surprised by how quickly the money went. 4 rules. They are not about restraint. The reason people spend their buffer is not weakness. It is that at level 2, everything feels like an emergency, because there has never been a distinction between a genuine crisis and an ordinary expense you failed to anticipate. Both produce the same feeling. Both arrive as urgency. So you decide in advance, in writing, while you are calm. 3 tests, and it must pass all 3. Was it unexpected? Is it necessary? Is it urgent? A boiler failing in January is all 3. A car needing new tires is necessary and urgent, but it was not unexpected. Tires wear out on a schedule, and that is a planned cost you did not plan for. A holiday you feel you have earned is none of the 3, however true it is that you have earned it. The genuinely difficult cases are the ones in the middle, and it is worth deciding them now rather than when they arrive. A funeral in another country. Unexpected, necessary, urgent. That is the fund without hesitation, and this is exactly what it exists for. A boiler that is limping rather than dead, which the engineer says has perhaps a year left. Not urgent. That is now a planned cost with a deadline, and the correct response is a separate pot, not this one. A job you need to leave because it is damaging you. This is the one people get wrong in the other direction. They treat it as indulgence when it is closer to a medical necessity. If your health is going, that passes all 3 tests, and a buffer spent on getting out of a job that was harming you is a buffer that did its job perfectly. A wedding you are in, necessary in a social sense, entirely expected, not remotely urgent. That is a planned cost, and if it is not planned for, that is a level 2 problem rather than an emergency. Write those 3 words somewhere. You will see them when you are not calm. The point of deciding in advance is that the version of you who is calm gets to overrule the version of you who is not, and the second version is the one who will be holding the phone. The fastest way to lose a buffer is to let it become the account where you also keep the holiday money, the car fund, and the deposit you are saving toward. Once an account has 2 purposes, it has no purpose. The balance stops meaning anything because you can no longer tell at a glance whether you are drawing on the holiday or on the foundation. And in practice, you will always tell yourself it was the holiday. Every other savings goal gets its own place. This one is single purpose, and its purpose is that your life continues. You will use it at some point. That is not failure. That is the fund working exactly as designed, and there is no shame in a buffer being spent on the thing it was built for. The rule is, what happens next? Until it is back to full, nothing discretionary increases. No new subscriptions, no upgraded anything, no expansion of the ordinary monthly cost of your life. The rebuild takes priority over every optional dollar. This one rule is the difference between a person who has a buffer once and a person who has one permanently, because without it, the pattern is always the same. You spend it, you feel relieved that it was there, you resolve to rebuild it, and then a raise arrives, and your life quietly absorbs the money instead. 2 years later, you are at level 2 again, and you cannot point to the moment it happened. About 18 months in, the fund will be sitting there, full, doing apparently nothing, and a voice will suggest that this is wasteful, that the money could be growing. Surely there is a smarter version of this. That is the level 2 voices, and it is measuring the wrong thing. The return on a buffer is not financial. Its return is optional, and optionality does not appear on any statement. It shows up as the job you turned down, the client you dropped, the argument you were willing to have, the year you took to build something rather than taking the first offer available. None of that is visible in a rate of interest, and all of it is worth more than the 2% you gave up. It looks idle. It is doing the most work of anything you own. I want to finish somewhere other than the mechanics, because the mechanics are not why these matters. Seneca had a practice he recommended to his friend Lucilius, and it is the most useful thing anyone has written on this subject in 2,000 years. He suggested setting aside a few days every so often to live deliberately on the plainest food and the roughest clothing, while being perfectly able to afford better, and then asking yourself, honestly, is this the thing I was afraid of? People read that as a lesson in toughness. It is not. It is a calibration exercise. He argued that most of our financial fear is not fear of hardship. It is fear of an imagined hardship we have never actually inspected, and that the fear is almost always worse than the thing. That is what a buffer really does. It does not make you rich, and at level 3 you are not rich by any definition. What it does is remove a specific background noise that most people have run for their entire adult lives without noticing it was there. Money you might need next week occupies part of your mind permanently, whether you are consciously thinking about it. It runs underneath everything, and it consumes capacity you would otherwise spend on your work, on the people you live with, or on thinking about anything at all. People who reach level 3 consistently describe the same thing, and it is never about the money. They say the noise stopped. One last thing, and it is the one I would most like you to take. The distance between level 2 and level 3 is not money. You do not need a raise, a side business, a windfall, or a better job. Almost everybody watching this could be at level 3 within 18 months on their current income, and the only reason most will not be is that the money will arrive and then quietly leave again on 40 small, reasonable decisions that nobody could later reconstruct. So, the whole thing reduces to one sentence. Decide what an emergency is while you are calm. Put the money somewhere your ordinary self cannot casually reach, and do not let your life expand until it is full. That is level 3. It is unglamorous. Nobody will ever see it, and it will change your working life more than any raise you are likely to get. Level 4 is next. What it takes for what you own to cover what your life costs. Why the number people chase is usually wrong, and the reason most people who get there feel nothing when they arrive. If that is the one you want, subscribe and it will find you. And if you have not seen how the 5 levels fit together, that video is on screen now. Start there. It is the map this one sits inside.